Yeah.
See, so that's the piece that my parents thought I was hiding a terminal illness when I did all my legal documents in my 20s. And I said, no,
Normalize doing these
I
legal
said,
legal
this,
documents.
I said, this isn't about me being old and, not being here anymore. This is about me being here, but not fully capable.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Tiffany Alexander, and this is Unveiling Journeys. If you've seen it before, welcome back. If this is your first time, I'm so excited to meet you. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. I am obsessed. I love networking. I love meeting incredible people, high level people that are doing wonderful things in this world. And that's who I generally love to interview on the show. And nothing less than the best today because through the power of asking someone, hey, who do I need to know that you know? That's exactly how I met our guest that's going to be on today. And she gets to tell you about her wonderful story and this incredible life that she's had and all the amazing things she's doing right now, which means like a lot to me because it has such a ripple effect on everybody in the world. So with that, thank you for coming today, Lynn. Welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about who you are right now and what you're up to.
Well, I thank you for having me, and I am awfully glad that we were connected. And you guys, if you don't know Tiffany, you need to. Anyway, so my name is Lynn Lambrecht, and I live in Southern California. I founded my organization's called The Living Planner, and I'm a contingency planning like geek, if you will. We can't predict, but we can prepare is kind of my motto. And rather than being fearful of things, I like to empower us and actually build our confidence so that we know who our helpers are and we've got our ducks quacking in a row.
Our ducks quacking in a row. Now, what it is that you do specifically isn't just what people are thinking. It branches off into so many different versions of it.
I
Tell
know.
us like a sampling of what kind of the things that you're doing with your company.
What I have found, I saw a gap in society. And I saw amazing financial planners and amazing people who sold insurance policies and amazing attorneys and accountants and fiduciaries and the people that help you with end of life and all that stuff. Number one, I didn't see that people threaded it together. And number two, I didn't see us actually thinking of our autopilot selves in our day to day life because that's where the impact is felt. And, we need all the important financial planning and insurance, insurance stuff. And we need to make sure that our wishes are documented in a form that's accepted by the state in which you live. And that would be through legal documents. But all of that is moot if we don't know how to get into where you live. So I kind of go into the day to day life. I worked in corporate for a long time. I love attorneys. I sass with them to this day, and the same with all the rest of these rascals. But they talk in a language that isn't our day to day talking language. And it's really hard to understand. And what I found, even with my own parents, guess what? They were embarrassed. They didn't know what to ask. And so they didn't know how to ask it. And they didn't want people to think that they weren't loving their family or wanting to protect them. And therefore, they did nothing. So when that happens, guess what? There's a whole bunch of administrative side to our lives that we're not taught about when we're little. And we don't grow up understanding that we need to have this administrative side, which is daunting. So I just like to chunk it down and say, guess what? We're living our lives today. Let's feel better about it today. Let's live our lives fully and also know that we have support and help when it's time.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much because not only do you automatically have this like trusting, like I feel like I could trust telling you without persecution or without like
There's no
that
judgment.
oh my gosh, you didn't get this set up already, like you're bringing them into this safe space to let them break down their walls that they've built up so high of like almost the shame and fear of not knowing what you don't know, and you're providing a service for people that didn't even realize that they may not even know they need to have services that you provide.
That's what I find often. And
Hmm.
what's interesting is, I mean, we live in a beautiful country with a whole bunch of people, and 68% of us don't have any legal documents done.
Oh, no,
And
that's a lot.
that number has gone up since the pandemic, which to me is counterintuitive. I would have
Mhm.
thought that it might have reduced, but I think people, who wants to talk about this crap? So
No.
I talk about all the stuff that we don't want to talk about, but I also want to do it from a positioning standpoint of who's in the world to help me when I need it? What are the things that I need help with? But, like, okay, I don't have activities of daily living that I'm functioning in full form. Okay, who needs to do what and how do I get there? Maybe it's because of all the stuff that I've done with my own parents, but it's also when I was in my career in aviation, I was a volunteer emergency team responder. So I worked airplane crash sites, and that isn't, I mean, we've had a few recently which have completely been jarring, but we hadn't had any for quite some time. And I'm a little chronologically advanced. So this is back a little ways. And I worked two crash sites in my 20s.
Hmm.
So I saw a lot and I realized we can't grieve when we deserve to if we are too scared about the practicalities of how you're going to wake up the next morning and do what you used to do. And
Wow.
that was the piece that broke my heart. And I thought, okay, I know I've been in that reactive space. I also worked 9/11, but what I realized is the reactive space isn't where I want to be because I'm pretty positive. I'm trying to make lemonade out of any lemon that I'm given. And I look at all things as, okay, this is a lesson. It's here to serve me, blah, 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 blah. I'm one of those. And I thought, okay, how could I be a proactive cheerleader? How could I be that person where I take the scary away, the woogies away, from the
Yeah.
standpoint of just saying, okay, some of this is complex. I get it. But there are pieces of it that we can break it down so that you don't have to eat that elephant in one bite. You're taking little nibbles.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Okay. We have so much to talk about. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me where you were born and raised. Did you want to be doing this
Did
when
I
you
want to
grew
be
up?
this?
Like I want to hear it all because obviously you've cracked into a little bit of your story already about like working a plane crash. Like how we got to get there. Tell me from the beginning.
Yeah, I grew up on the Iowa border of Illinois, Moline, Illinois, the Quad Cities. Nothing runs like a deer. That's where John Deere and Company is headquartered. But no one in my family worked for them. I mean, I have a World War II. I had a World War II dad who became a dentist with the GI Bill. I have a mom who was like this wild woman who played golf in college in the 1940s because her dad took her out on the golf course when she was starting when she was 4 or 5. So, I mean, she was McGilla Gorilla off the tee. And it was just very interesting. I'm the youngest of three children. I'm an oops, or I should say a bonus baby
Yeah, unplanned baby.
because my siblings are quite a bit older, 13 and a half years and 6 years older than me. So I got the power of observation as a child growing up of being able to kind of see how things were going and how things were and what went on. And I mean, I love reading books. I love being outside. I love gardening. I mean, I'm kind of a nature kid too. Went to college in Florida, grad school in Ohio, ran residence halls in undergrad and head res in grad school to pay for school.
Wait,
And
what'd
I
you go
had
to school for?
organizational communication in undergrad.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and as an RA, I had a lot of crisis intervention training. And it's interesting because I'm a live wire. I'm a non-caffeinated live wire, but boy, when that poo-poo hits the fan,
Yeah.
all I want to do is make sure people have the support and services they need to make sure they can wake up the next day and feel better, and
Wow.
at least be able to get up. Being with a dentist dad and a doctor brother and all this other stuff, we had, I mean, I'm fine with the gore and all of that, but I wasn't called into that. My sister's in the sciences too. So I was a little bit of a radical who joined the aviation sector as the first woman to do most of my jobs. I was in management positions. After grad school, I moved to the Bay Area and I started with Northwest Orient Airlines in those days.
How about
And
that?
yeah, I called on government and military installations and corporations and travel agencies and tour operators and the Hawaii wholesalers. And,
Yeah.
it was amazing because I got to kind of experience a corporate side of life, but also have people plan things that were fun. They got to plan their travel. They got to plan seeing things around the world. And I started traveling also. So it was part of that job. Got promoted a lot. So moved a lot. I've lived in 17 places in 35 years. I was from San Fran to Sacramento, Sacramento to LA, LA to Cleveland to oversee Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky, to Seattle to oversee the entire West Coast, changed countries and companies, and moved to China to first be the salesperson, sales manager for passenger and freight for United Airlines. And then my boss got promoted, so I became the country manager. So I got to start doing things like negotiating bilateral agreements and working with the government on developing an emergency response plan and
Wow.
make sure that we had a banking settlement plan and do all kinds of fun developmental things as well as having daily operations in Beijing and Shanghai. I love my business side, but I also realized at that point, my boss had asked me to move down to Hong Kong to oversee the Pacific South division and break somebody in my job in Beijing. And about 6, 8 months into that job in Hong Kong, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I told him, I said, I know we don't really have a repatriation program, but I don't want to be 8,000 miles away because no matter where I was in the world, I visited my parents every 3 months. They were older. I was the bonus.
Yeah.
So, one of those kind of deals. And he tethered me back to work in Chicago, which afforded me the opportunity to drive across the state every weekend to help my mom understand what the administrative things were that dad had handled that she didn't know and be there in support of my dad. And that's when I worked 9/11. And at that point, I had been working within a headquarters position, but our CEO had pulled 5 of us to start up a fractional jet venture. So I got to work on the private aviation side at that point. And after 9/11, that division, we ultimately shut down like two
Wow.
years later. Because when you have terror, you can't predict P&L and funding, what we got to see grow, we got to unravel. So that timing, the door closed and the window opened because that was right during the whole 5.5 years I had been in Chicago. It was right before dad died. So I was able to be home, with that part. What was interesting is getting mom settled and taking care of that stuff. And I moved to Montreal to go work with the International Air Transport Association, which oversees the world's airlines. It's a nonprofit. And even though it's a nonprofit, they needed surplus, meaning revenue, to fund industry initiatives. So I headed up a commercial department of strategic partnerships. So it was Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies from around the world. And it was a lot of fun. And so in year 4, just like year 4 in Asia, my mom started failing. And that's when I did not renew my contract. And I had gotten my place in Southern California after dad died. And I had renters who timing, I love divine timing. My renters were getting a promotion and needed to move to LA. And so I moved my stuff back here and I commuted between here and Illinois to help my mom get things kind of squared away and settled on that side. And I gave myself a pause and I said, all right, who are you? What do you want to
Mm,
do?
yeah.
Are you going to be like Little Miss Travel Bunny forever?
Jet
Or
set
is
forever
there
or
something that you can do that truly has meaning? And I thought, okay, I want to look at all these patchwork quilt pieces of my life, and everything seemed to involve things like the stuff we don't want to talk about. I call myself the 3D: death, disability, and disaster. Like how do we actually prepare a little bit in advance of that stuff so when things hit, it's not as devastating?
yeah.
So yeah, I created the living planner. I wrote my book, The Living Planner: What to Prepare Now While You Are Living. I wrote it as if I was writing it for my parents. So it's layperson language, short little chapters, almost like James Pattison. So you can read each of them separately. They don't have to be all read in one thing. And it's in a big, big like format so that the print is a little bigger. It's not as intimidating. And I have like pre-planning things, what to do at a loss, ongoing follow-up, and then I have some appendices. And I thought, okay, now I need to talk to all the professionals. So I started talking to like the individual professionals. They all thought I was nuts because I'm not selling a product that pays a residual income, like an insurance policy that might continue to pay, or financial plans, the same kind of thing. And I thought, nah, I want to be the layperson advisor. I am going to consult on this deal. I want people to know that they have a place where it's safe and we can have a conversation if they're willing to talk about different planning needs that might be unique to them. I don't truly work to scale because I would rather be more of a white glove approach with the people that I work with and make sure that things are handled in a way that they love and that I can be proud of. Yeah, so I work with individuals and families and small businesses, small business owners. I help kids when they're turning 18. It must be my old RA days because the independence is really exciting, but What do you mean I have responsibilities? What do you mean? I need to like designate someone to be contacted at my doctor's office if something happens.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of little practicalities that come into play that we learn the hard way.
Hmm.
So I'd rather be the advisor in advance so that we can make some good decisions.
Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like you almost don't have enough hours in the day to do all the stuff that you do because you're doing it intensely for so many people. But how do you manage all of the ways that you're able to help people so uniquely in white glove style with
I don't
all
take
of
a
their
whole lot of
needs?
clients. I
Okay.
mean, I get to, and I do and I don't. This is the thing. Number one, none of you really want to talk to me because we have to deal with the stuff that you don't
Yeah.
want to think about.
It is very morbid topic.
Well, it it's life.
Yeah.
And I want us to live like our lives fully and like and yet always be prepared.
Yeah.
Because it's the craziness. I mean, I have a friend that lives up in LA and the fires impacted. And I had been like a little drill sergeant with, can you leave in 15 minutes? Grab and go. Can you do the 15 minutes? I was like a boot camp instructor. And I mean, for years. And
Yeah. Yeah.
they were able to do that. And
Wow.
so, I mean, when I see sometimes the impact that I have on the little Lynnisms that I have,
Mhm.
it really, it matters to me.
That is
So
so important. We need more people like you in our lives to make us reminded of that everything's not here all the time forever on autopilot, like what we're doing day in and day out. Like even just that story of can you leave in 15 minutes? Everybody needs to have that action plan because not everywhere where we live is completely free from everything. There's hurricanes and tornadoes and
okay,
earthquakes
so
where
I
we're
grew
at.
up in the Midwest with tornadoes and floods because the
Yeah.
mighty Mississippi was right there and tornadoes. And I remember our basement, we were stock, we had our little stock, we had a basement. Well, I don't have a basement now, but Florida, I drove the P Wagon in my first hurricane because our dorm didn't have plumbing and we had to
Wow.
go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went from tornadoes and floods into hurricanes, moving to California to have my first earthquake. And then the whole fire thing. When I was over
Fires.
up in Seattle and overseeing Alaska, we had volcanic eruption.
Oh,
When I
that's
was in
right.
Asia, I had monsoons and typhoons. So I think I've been through like a little bit of all of them, you guys, and it's hilarious. But in my mind, it's like, okay, if I wanted to come home and I couldn't, what do I need to start over? It's
Ooh.
just kind of how I'm wired. And I
Yeah.
think part of it is the crashes. Some of it is, where I've lived because I've had such a strange living experience of working on 6 continents and living in 3 or 4. It's just everything we're here to put together our patchwork quilt.
Yeah. There have in most definitely been people in your life that have given you pieces of wisdom that you love to survive off of or that you love to pass on. What are some of those nuggets that you cling to that you want to share with everyone?
Be who you are. And that was always interesting because that came from my dad because I wasn't my brother and sister. I mean, they were definitely science driven, more reserved. It was always, I'm definitely an introvert, but I am a conversational introvert and I express myself. But it was like, Lenny, just you be who you are. That was one. I had a really interesting man that I worked with when I was in the fractional jet stuff. And he said, wherever you are in that moment that you are, be present so that that person knows that it's only them that you're talking to. Eliminate the distractions when you're with someone. And that one always stuck with me.
Hmm.
So those were two of like what I'll call the soulful ones. The others are, you know, yeah, we can put our oxygen mask on us first before we assist others. That is just from being on too many airplanes for 35 years. I mean,
Right?
it's fascinating to me how much we're willing to extend ourselves at times without regard to ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty as charged.
That's great advice for all the moms too and business owners. It's like if you care for yourself intensely, translates into like pouring from an empty cup. You can no longer do that. And if you are trying to help from an oxygen left body, right? Like you have to help yourself first to ensure that you can continue to help more people around you.
And at the end of the day, guess what? It's not worth having rising cortisol levels and busting your adrenals. It takes a lot to come back from that. And I live to tell that tale. I mean, driving 177 miles each way every weekend while working 18-hour days and working 9/11 as a crash,
Yeah.
that was me. That was my world. And it takes a bit to, come back from that when you're that depleted.
Yeah.
So just know that regular sustenance, I mean, make time for yourself to eat well, movement, whatever that movement is, body, mind, spirit activities, whatever they are, make some time every day.
Oh, that's incredible. You have so many stories that I feel like we just grazed through. We did not even stop and pause on. Can we just take a second to skip back to the first phone call that you got that was like, I need you to shift right now and you're going to go do this in your 20s,
Yeah.
and what that was like to come straight out of college, go work for a company and they say, we need you to go work a crash site. Tell
Well,
me
I was
more.
given the option, I mean, I was called actually the first day that I showed up in the office because of my background. And I said, hey, tell me what it entails. And they said, hey, you would be called to work on site and would be assigned to a family or where the families gather or in the morgue that we had, temporary morgue that we would have to establish on the ground. And I said, oh, certainly. Now, my brother and father were horrified. And I knew why, because they had each been in war. And I just said, you guys, I know, thank you, but this is my call to service. And if I'm ever needed, I'm in. I mean, you guys had your call to service and it was more official in the military. Mine, this is something that I can do. So I had just been promoted and moved up to Sacramento, didn't know a soul. Just literally the movers had pretty much done this and packed me into this new little cute little spot that I had found as my apartment. And yeah, I got a call and they needed me to be on a red eye because an airplane had gone down. And I thought, oh my God, I don't even know how, they said, how long will it take to get there to, San Francisco? Because we didn't have red eyes out of Sacramento. We had just purchased Republic Airlines and our flights there were daytime flights. And I said, well, I'm gonna have to drive down to San Fran. And who knows what traffic is? It could be 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So, just throwing clothes in a bag saying, here I go, and like trying to, got on an airplane, got there, didn't really sleep on the plane because I couldn't. And I always said I'd be assigned to a family, but they had been assigned. And so I worked on the ground and in the morgue during the daytime. But then I worked in the command center in the crisis phone center. I was the person that the families could call from midnight to 6 in the morning to ask
Wow.
questions. And
Yeah.
hey, who sleeps when something like
Nobody,
that
apparently
happens?
not
I mean,
you.
well, I wasn't, but the families weren't either.
Yeah, that's true.
And so for them, it was more about support and service to them. So,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
that was my first experience. And that's what planted the seed for me, knowing that how people weren't really, there was shock. So that was hard to grieve. But it was also, if I wake up tomorrow, I don't even know where this is. I mean, there was too much, there was a practical panic, I call it.
Yeah.
Because how do you, when you're used to having someone to ask, hey, honey, where's the checkbook or where can I find this account or do I have health insurance? Do we have this? When that person is your person and isn't
Yeah.
there, then
Yeah.
what? And
Yeah.
within all of us, what do? We play to our strengths and we divide and we conquer. And the piece that is missing is that conversation or that ability to say or outline, this is what I do in case. This is what I do in case. And
Hmm.
that was a missing link. And I kept thinking, okay, it's just me. So I know what I do. But if somebody else needed to know, because I did all my legal documents in my 20s. And that's when I started what I called creating my trail of breadcrumbs of how in the world could somebody walk in and have any clue what my life's like?
Right.
I don't give them breadcrumbs to
Hmm.
show them the way. And so I know that it's my own mind, just like making it less heavy.
Hmm.
But that's kind of one of my survival techniques, I think, is just finding like, okay, what are my breadcrumbs? How does somebody get into where I live? How do they know where I park my car? How does somebody know where my mail is? I
Wow.
have a locked box. How does I have a gate? Each of us has a very unique set of experiences just from our day-to-day lives. And, do you have an alternate home? Do you have an RV? Do you have ATVs? Do you have this? Do you have storage units? Do you have this? I'm anal retentive. My siblings tell me that I was dropped by aliens. So I'm your alien.
My gosh, this is stuff that if somebody's listening to this right now, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about." Even me, I'm like, we had some family, well, not family, friends of family that had recently passed, and just having an eyeball to eyeball conversation with my spouse, like, what happens if you aren't here or if I'm not here? And he took a deep breath and was like, I don't know what I would do if you weren't here. You know passwords to stuff. And I'm like, man, that's tough to
That's what you
hear
told me
because
when we talked the first
yeah, and
time.
we
I was like,
I've written so much stuff down, but I don't
"Good."
think the idea of leaving a breadcrumb trail for him to know where to go, because it's like, yeah, I've written out documents and we have passwords and we have what's on auto payment, not on auto payment, but also where the life insurance policies are. Like, it's all in a folder, but he doesn't even know how to breadcrumb trail over there, especially in a time of grief or if something were to happen.
When
And
you're in panic. So in some ways, think of going when we go to the gym. We, I mean, we don't get six pack abs in one visit. So that's why I said the small little chunks that's what I like to focus on because frankly, when we build the muscle a little bit at a time and say, okay, this is this, and okay, this is that, and you break it into chunks, it just makes life a little bit easier.
yeah,
Even while we're living. I mean, come on.
yeah, while we're living, of course, because
I
I mean,
mean, then
it'd
it's like,
be,
oh, grab and go.
yeah, it may not be sudden, it could be over time, which I mean,
Well,
but
and it could be like my dad when he was physically here, but not mentally capable.
yeah, yeah.
See? So that's the piece that my parents thought I was hiding a terminal illness when I did all my legal documents in my 20s. And I said, no.
Normalize doing these
I said,
legal
this, I
documents.
said, this isn't about me being old and, not being here anymore. This is about me being here, but not fully capable.
Yeah.
And that's the piece of incapacity that, who can like pay my bills and who can
Mhm.
help me make a decision if I can't speak and who can do this and but not just who can, but who will. So we have to provide the documentation for the authorization, but we also need to provide the communication to let them know where and how.
Oh my gosh. This is everybody's wake up call. Listen up. This is your reminder. You need to have someone. If you don't have someone, you do have someone. Here's why.
Well, and
Then
the thing
where
is
do
when
you
we
want them to
when
come
we
find you?
find me at my website, thelivingplanner.com. That's like a main website, and up on the right, I have some online courses that you can click on that little button and it'll take you to some stuff for your pets. Because guess what? Who takes care of our pets if we're not here?
Hmm.
It's not just about us, it's about all aspects of our lives. So, people, pets, and business is the way I like to phrase it. You can also reach out anytime by phone by text or call to 951-400-5966. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, everything's the living plan. I mean, the living planner. I'm my name and the living planner on LinkedIn, and then the living planner at Instagram, living planner on X, and all the socials, Blue Sky, and
At this point, everybody's thinking, I definitely want to get to know you because you have goodies on your website, you have little baby courses on there, you have real big courses, and then you have one-on-one that somebody may need to have this really
I have my
custom white glove
well-being
approach.
checkup. It's my favorite part.
Oh, I
It's my
love that
little
so
white glove
much.
thing because then we look at life and we have a really long call and I ask a whole bunch of questions and do a gap analysis and then we have a follow-up call afterwards because you feel like you've just had a fire hose explosion and you're thinking and I like to make sure that we have a follow-up and then I'll say, okay, are you good to go on your own? Because if you are, be off with you. And if not, let's have some accountability.
Yeah, yeah, because some of this stuff starts to be a lot to dig through or a lot to process, and, like, why does somebody need to know this? Like, oh my gosh, imagine, in a
Well,
blink
but
of an eye.
each state's really different too. And so I have like a collection of all 50 states, Puerto Rico, DC, all of that I try to keep pretty updated too, just to kind of make sure that we understand, okay, what are the procedures and holy crap, why are we going when do we go to court and how much does that cost? Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah. So
right?
it's crazy. It's there to protect us.
Mhm.
But I will tell you one area that I know that young families, two sides to that coin. How do you parent your parents when it's time? That's something that they would expect you to do. Do you even have the authorizations you need to help when it's time to help? And then what happens to your little ones if something ever happens to you? And you might think that your family members can help if that's appropriate, but the courts don't think that because they want you to identify that you trust them. And
Mhm.
who are those people that you would entrust? And so that needs to be in a formalized document. So it's a little crazy. It's just both sides of the house
Yeah.
because I know I work with a lot of people that are in that panini sandwich generation. You know, you're kind of in the frying pan. So I've had some people say, "No, this is a panini, not a sandwich."
Sorry. We get to pick whatever word I guess it
You
fits
do.
nicely.
You do.
You've been so wonderful. I love that you've brought this to my attention, to everyone's attention. And I hope everybody listening to this, you're like, at least go follow her website, friend her on LinkedIn. If you can't find her, you're going to friend me and then you're going to find her. And by all
And I
means,
always offer a complimentary discovery call. I mean, it's just something that I do because it may not be a fit for you.
yeah,
And again, I get that too. But if I have one encouragement,
yes, leave us with that.
no, I know that people tend to wait until we have a trigger. But in that, I mean, if you could do it before that trigger, I encourage you because then your mind is more free because it's hard. I mean, these decisions are crazy enough without being in a complete stress zone.
Yeah,
I mean, going to the emergency room and finding out that nobody has the power to talk to the doctor is not a good deal, or make a decision for somebody.
yeah,
Making those choices in advance helps.
absolutely. You have such wonderful advice, and I'm excited that we're friends and that I'm going to send more friends
Thank
your
you.
way. You've been
I
amazing.
hope I
Thank you
didn't
for your
blabber
time.
too much, but you guys,
Oh,
if
it's
you have
wonderful because
questions, you just let me know, and I'm
yeah,
really
it's like
thankful to
I just
be
love
here.
hearing that you care so much and that you're such a safe person to talk to and that you're bringing things to light that people have long forgotten about and they wouldn't need it until a time of stress when it's like, let's think about it now. Let's do it now. Let's bring it to the front of our brains when we can operate in a good brain space. And then who is it you would even want to know if you're listening? Like obviously Lynn. Like go hang out with her, go have a free meeting with her, and then see what you need next by checking out all of the resources that she
And
has. So
breathe. Please just breathe. Because at the end of the day, it's crazy. None of us have time. I know that.
yeah.
But time is that crazy little construct, I mean, if we're spending time worrying, I'd rather see you spend time doing.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you've been amazing.
Thank
One
you.
more time, thank you for your time. And everybody, I'll see you on the next episode and check out all the show notes below so that way you can
Reach out.
go say hi to Lynn. Go to her website and then I'll circle back around with you guys soon. Thanks again. Bye everybody.